You know, the only people who panic are the ones who are not prepared. Let's talk about this. Right now, I have Mylar out, and we're gonna be doing some Mylar tonight. But the human rationale starts to deplete when people start to realize that they're not as prepared, which I witnessed. I witnessed this week. For the first time ever, I got hit at a store over somebody else not being prepared and in a panic of what if they don't get chickens. We've seen it. We've seen it over and over. We saw it during the pandemic. We saw people fighting and arguing over toilet paper. It's never the ones who are prepared that are the ones that are fighting. Never once you'll see any of us that are prepared wanting to fight for a resource because we've already been preparing those resources. Now, sure, there could be a time that our resources are depleted and that we would want to fight for a resource. But most of the time, people who prepare are not the ones that are panic buying in the stores, not the ones in a line for chickens at their local feed store. So right here, I made an order. I wanted to get ahead of the game because I did run out of Mylar, and I wanted to get more things packaged up because you never know. So it's very, very simple. Today we are going to be Mylaring rice. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button as we talk about the reasons why you would want to Mylar, how to do it correctly, and why you should be doing it now and not a year from now or 6 months from now, not when panic has set in and everybody is panic buying and you can't find rice in the stores. You can store up on your rice and it's good for 25 to 30 years. It lasts a very long time in these kind of bags right here. Mylar. I have 4 different types of bags right here. I have a 2 quart, which is 2 quarts worth, 1 quart bags, 2.5 gallon size bags. They are folded in half right now. They are much larger. They're about half the size of my body. These are what we're gonna be using, and we're gonna be using those in the bucket because you got a 5 gallon bucket, 2.5 gallons each. That will store up food, a lot of food. And then I have also 1 gallon. I prefer the 1 gallons when I'm doing flour. Don't ask me why. I feel like I go through them quicker and then I can just replenish later. All right, something we wanna know about Mylar. You want 7 mLs in thickness. I prefer to go to a company, it's called topmylar.com. I'm not associated with them. They just have very sturdy Mylar. It doesn't have any pin pricks. It doesn't have any holes or gashes. And I've never been disappointed in their quality versus buying something cheaply made off of Amazon and you have some pinholes and then oxygen's getting in and your food is ruined. So ultimately I do like topmylar.com, and that's where I got these bags. They're 2.5 gallons. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set up the bucket and I'm gonna place in 2.5 gallons, okay? I'm just gonna kind of open it up and let it sit inside. Now, the reason you would want to be Mylaring your food into buckets is sooner or later when another pandemic hits, an economical crash, World War III, whatever you want to call it, doomsday zombies, I don't care. People will always be true to human instinct. Don't fool yourself. Don't think that somebody is going to sacrifice their resources for you. It may come to a surprise, but many people will end up fighting over the smallest things, fighting over toilet paper, fighting over children's Tylenol. The best thing you can do is just prepare. And that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm just gonna Mylar rice up. I know that the amount of rice that's gonna go in this 2.5 gallon bag into this big bucket will last my family well over a month, very easily. Maybe even 2 months of rice. So right here I have 25 pounds of jasmine rice, which is long grain white rice. And I'm gonna take the rice and I'm gonna transfer it into there. You can use scoops, you can do whatever you would like, but we're just gonna fill up this bag. All right. right, since I filled up most of this bag, I'm gonna leave a little bit of room in it. I'm gonna push this to the side, and I'm gonna shove this other 2.5 gallon bag down into here, because ultimately we're just gonna fold this down inside this bucket. In my last video, I was talking about how people were disgruntled and wanting to fight in the store, and ultimately I ended up getting hit. I ended up getting hit in my chest, and at that moment, I had to take a breath and really assess the situation. The woman who was very, very, very upset, she was waiting in line for chicks because she has no chickens. And every single store seems to be sold out of all these chickens, just like it could happen to any type of resource that we're prepping for. And she thought I was cutting a line because the store had called to let everyone know that their special orders had already arrived. Mind you, they're not opening up the sale of chickens for another 2 hours. And there was a line from where the chickens were in the feed store all the way back past the cashier. I went in, I said, hey, I got a phone call, my special order is here. So I start walking up and they're like, yeah, go see so-and-so over by the chickens. And I was like, okay, cool, perfect. And I know most of these people because I have chickens and I'm constantly at this store. But there was a very disgruntled line, which we've seen. We saw with the pandemic. We saw people showing up in line and having to have special times for shopping and all of these insane mandates that none of us had really ever experienced before. So I go up and I say, hey, it's me. I'm here to pick up my special order chicks. And this little lady came up and she's no older than my grandmother. And she comes up and she jumps into my face and she goes, you cannot pass. And I was like, whoa. Like, when people's mind shuts down, where they're actually fearful of their resources being completely depleted. This is all over the egg crisis. She believes truly in her mind that the only way for her to get those resources is to stop me, who already has paid and ordered just to replace parts of my flock that died this fall. And I approached her and I was just like, you good? And I was like, I've already ordered my stuff. And she starts hollering and yelling. And one of the ladies who works there comes up and is like trying to calm her down and was like, no, she special ordered, she's already paid, she's just coming to pick hers up. And she was like, ma'am, you can come this way. And so I went to step, and I think the woman went to go put her hand like this on my chest, but instead she closed palmed and straight into my chest. And I stood there because, once again, little sweet old lady, she just decked me. And I just was like, okay, what do you do with that? So either A, I could escalate and start yelling back, and then once again, then there's civil conflict, and then that creates a whole different situation. Or I could remain calm, kind of assess the situation. And if people are getting this intense about baby chicks, this comes from their own insecurities. If you've seen anybody get that upset over a resource, it's because they're deflecting the fact that they don't have resources. They are upset that they have not taken the time to prep and prepare and become self-sufficient. And for that comes this heightened urgency of they're freaking out and they don't know what else to do. It reminds me of the scene off of Homestead when they're fighting outside the grocery store. Once again, it was over toilet paper, silly. And people fighting about antibiotics and all kinds of different resources. If you don't take the time to prepare, the only thing you can expect is there is going to be conflict. Because I already have those resources at home, it wasn't like that urgent for me. In that moment is, okay, well, if you're going to take my chicks, I guess you'll take my chicks, or I get to take my chicks home with me. I already have chickens. I already prepare. But all rationale turned off in her brain. At that moment, she had forgot that other people exist. She thought I was taking her spot, that I was going to be taking her resources from her. and they hit that heightened fight or flight response. So the only thing you guys can do at this moment, and that's ultimately up to you. I can't fix people who just watch the channel and then they don't prep. But if you prep now, when those moments happen, and they've happened throughout history, they've happened during World War II, they've happened during the Cold War era, they've happened during inflation, the 2008, the housing crisis, recently COVID, the Great Depression. It's happened time and time again throughout our history. There's not been a time in our history where we haven't seen some sort of resources deplete, whether gas prices, diesel prices shoot up and then people can't afford, or there's a storm or a hurricane that comes through, and everybody always goes and panic buys, right? You enter into hurricane season, everyone's got to wipe out all the shelves, a winter storm, a freeze, everybody's got to wipe out the store. They always grab French toast supplies, bread and milk and eggs. And I'm always curious, what all do you cook with those? I mean, I cook a lot, but those three things are always the first ones to be grabbed. And a lot of people forget to grab the things that they actually cook and they actually eat and what your family likes. But they always wipe out the stores. It's just been proven. It's been proven for the last century, the last 100 years. Anytime human beings feel any fluctuation in their resources, we're no better than dogs. We start to safeguard our resources. We get a little defensive. So at the moment that woman hit me, I knew she was trying to safeguard what she believed was hers, and how she believed it was unfair that I had pre-ordered mine weeks prior, and the ones the week before got taken, they got stolen. And the stores are seeing people come in and they're snatching chickens and shoving them into their pants. It's only a matter of time till you start seeing people start safeguarding their food resources just as heavily as their chicken resources or their toilet paper resources. It happens. It never ends. It never ceases to amaze me. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we are filling up all of our Mylar, because once again, it lasts 25, 30 years. We're going to be using our oxygen absorbers in them, but I'm going to show you how to do this. Now you want to leave enough room in the buckets that you can Ziploc and then heat seal the tops and shove them in and get the lid to twist on. You want to have enough room to be able to maneuver around inside these buckets. Now, many people think that you have to freeze your rice to be able to preserve it long term. It has actually been proven scientifically that you can either freeze it, let it defrost on your counter, like put it in your freezer for a couple days, then put it on your counter, let it dry out for about a week, because when you put rice in a freezer or flour in a freezer, there is moisture, there is condensation that happens as you're taking in and out. So you really want to make sure your materials are dry. There is a second proven way to keep weevils out or any pests or bugs out of your rice. Besides that is using oxygen absorbers. Today, I'm going to be using these oxygen absorbers. Each packet is 300 cc's, but because I'm using 2.5 gallons size Mylar, I'm going to be using well over 1,000 cc's. I'm just going to be adding extra into the package. But oxygen absorbers take the purpose of the freezing or placing your food inside of your oven. It's just a proven way. There's no oxygen inside the bags. No bugs can form. Science. We had a little bit of a spill over here. Thank goodness I cleaned my countertops before I do this. And so with this little spill, I'm just gonna sweep up the rice a little bit. All right, so I got my 2 bags here. They are filled to about here with rice, the 2.5 gallon bags. And I have enough room that I'm gonna be able to squeeze this down inside, be able to twist on my ring. That's what we're looking for. So now it's time for oxygen absorbers. So for each Mylar bag, I'm going to use about 1,000 oxygen absorbers. Each one of these are 3. So I'm actually going to be throwing in 4, which is 1,200 cc's of oxygen absorbers into each bag. So I'm going to be taking these 300 cc oxygen absorbers and I'm going to be tossing them into each bag. So the first bag is going to need 4, which is 1,200 cc's. This way I know all the oxygen is going to be absorbed from these bags and no weevils are going to develop. All right, so now that I got the first one with oxygen absorbers. I'm gonna add for the second bag, once again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what are we gonna do with all of these? We're gonna do a lot more Mylaring in multiple videos. So we got 4 more. We're gonna throw those in. Next, I'm gonna squeeze out the air. I'm gonna press on these. I'm gonna partway Ziploc first. We're gonna go about 3/4 of the way through on this Ziploc bag, on the Mylar. And then I'm gonna press out as much of the air as possible. Then I'm gonna finish zipping it all the way across. And we're gonna do the same for the next one. All right, one of the only things that we forgot to talk about is how we're gonna do a heat seal. I like to use a straightener. You can use an iron, you can use a straightener, you can use your Mylar press. I have a giant Mylar press downstairs, but I use those more for MREs, not when I'm using huge 5 gallons worth of Mylar in a bucket. I'm gonna use my hair straightener. I'm just gonna turn it on. I'm gonna crank it to about 350 degrees. I'm just gonna let that heat up and we're gonna start pressing the air out of this second bag. So once again, I'm gonna just press it down a little bit. I'm gonna zip it 3/4 of the way. We're gonna squeeze the air out. And then I'm going to finish zipping it all the way across. Say something happens and you wanna dip into your food reserves. What you're gonna do is you're gonna cut off your heat seal, and then what you're gonna do is open the Ziploc, scoop out the rice you need, stuff like that. You can always reseal, but you're gonna wanna use new oxygen absorbers or just completely use up your Mylar altogether. That's what I like to do. So this one's zipped, and now we are going to do the heat seal. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just take it and I'm just gonna run it very slowly across, creating a nice heat seal. That way, if the Ziploc part pops open, we don't end up getting air coming into it and it spoils your food, degrades your food over time. Just want a nice good heat seal, just protecting that Ziploc, because most of the time the Ziploc might pop open over time. So this first one is done. Now we're gonna get to the second one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just push this into the bucket and we're just left with this one. I'll do it slow motion for you guys so you guys can see. All right, once again, we have our Mylar. The top is not sealed. See how it kind of peels open? But we just make sure our Ziploc is sealed all the way. We're gonna take our straightener. We're just gonna press it over here and start running it slowly, creating a nice heat seal. You'll notice the bag starts to melt together. I like to do my heat seals right where these little divots are, so when I rip it open, I still have a little excess that I'm able to heat seal later, and I can open the Ziploc inside internally and be able to get whatever I need out of it, and then reseal if there's ever any question. I've had it where one time I forgot to put enough oxygen absorbers and had to go back in, so I just like to leave myself a nice little inch that is heat sealed, and then the Ziploc. All right, once you've placed your lid on, our spin top, this one's a spin. You can use a mallet. I'm gonna use a pen and I'm gonna label what's inside this bucket because honestly, I'm not gonna remember what's inside my bucket 25 years from now. I do these all the time. So I'm gonna write rice, and this is 20 pounds. And then I'll write the date, March 2025. So I know that this bucket is gonna be good until 2050, if not longer. So leave your comments down below. Have any of you guys stored up rice in buckets, or do you guys prefer Mylar and totes? I like totes, but when I'm using a large amount of rice, I'm gonna use as many of the 5-gallon buckets as I can, 5 to 7-gallon buckets. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you like Mylaring content. We're gonna be doing flour next on the channel. And we're gonna be just talking about how people are kind of losing it. We're very close to an economical collapse. Things are very unsteady. I mean, every day there's something new on the news talking about complete destruction, honestly. So you should be preparing right now so that you're not like the lady in the chicken line who decides to randomly hit somebody who's picking up their chickens, because if she's safeguarding her resources and she is that freaked out, she's got a lot of prepping to do to start feeling a little bit more secure in this world. And even though I don't feel secure in this world, I'm always prepping, so I'm always thinking about what's the next thing that I need to complete for my family and for myself. Don't be like her. And as always, stay aware, stay prepared, always have your head on a swivel. Get your Mylar, start putting some stuff away.